A very pleasant good afternoon as we welcome you into our Thursday edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube in State College, where we will be comfortably watching Saturday's game on ATV. The Nittany Lions making their way out to California today in preparation for Saturday's game. And this is such an intriguing game to me for so many different reasons. And I think when you combine it with the Ohio State-Oregon game, which will be coming up Saturday night out in Eugene, this is a weekend that could really obviously go a long way towards shaping the way the conference race, the Big Ten conference race, is going to play out. And I do think
national.
Yeah, this has some huge national ramifications.
This has been circled since May and June when everything came out. I mean, people were looking at these because we've been talking about it. Like, when do we play? When do those Ohio State and UCLA play?
Well, it's interesting. To me, it's interesting because one of the things, this is obviously a critical game for Penn State. Yep. There's no doubt about that. As I've said, there's just so much uncertainty still as we are nearing the halfway point of the season overall in college football. And one of the things that is very uncertain, I think I talked about on Tuesday here, and I've talked about elsewhere, the possibility, and I still think it is a possibility, that Penn State gets to the end of the season, and in those final AP rankings, Penn State faces one ranked opponent, Ohio State, all year. Now, that is a possibility. I will also turn around and tell you it is possible that they could have as many as 4 of their opponents, maybe even 5, that are in fact ranked in the top 25. Illinois' season, we still got to see how that plays out. West Virginia's season, we got to see how it plays out. USC, Washington, Minnesota now, you got to wait and see how their season plays out. So still a lot of things that can happen in a lot of different regards. And I think it's part of the fun this year is that while the Big Ten race to me still feels like it is Ohio State and then everybody else, that the race is really for second. Obviously, Penn State is hoping that that turns out to be wrong and that they shock the world here on November 2nd. And everybody, or the overwhelming majority of folks' predictions end up being wrong. But in the SEC now, Goon, like it feels to me really wide open. I know Texas is sitting there right now undefeated and looking like the team to beat. But I mean, a week ago, we were sitting here thinking Alabama looked like the team to beat and Vanderbilt beat them. So, and Texas has that big game with Georgia coming up, not this Saturday, a week from Saturday. And that'll go a long way towards shaping that race. But again, a lot of things that can happen when you look at Alabama's remaining schedule, Georgia's remaining schedule, Texas's remaining schedule.
Texas got Oklahoma Saturday.
And then, and I think Texas wins that, and I think they win it comfortably, but it is a rivalry game.
You're feeling yourself after last week.
Well, and I'm hoping the curse is on here because I would love to see Texas end up with 2 or 3 losses by the end of the season. So the fun as a football fan is, I do think this is playing out well for college football with the 12-team format, is there is greater uncertainty. There are more teams that are going to be in the mix. And I think in a lot of ways, it makes these games more impactful, more meaningful during the rest of the regular season, if you will, because one, you're not sure what it's going to take. I thought at the start of the season, 10-2 would be a lock for Penn State. Do I think it's still more likely than not, even at 10-2, that Penn State gets into the playoffs? I do, but I certainly don't feel like it's a lock. And certainly if Penn State loses handily to Ohio State and then drops, whether it's this USC game or Minnesota down the road or Wisconsin, it's going to be, to me, it's not a sure thing then. Again, you got to see how a lot of other things play out in college football. 11-1, regardless of ranked opponents and all of that, you're playing the Big Ten schedule, you're in. You're at the very least in the playoffs. But I do think how this next month or so of college football is just going to be wild. How do things play out in the SEC? How do things play out in the Big Ten, starting with that Ohio State at Oregon game this Saturday and the Penn State at USC game? And while it is unquestionably a critical juncture for Penn State, I also think this is an absolutely crucial game for Lincoln Riley and USC right now. They are feeling the pressure and the heat. You go to 3 losses here, it is possible that they turn it around and finish 9-3. But we were looking at their schedule earlier today, Goon. It is possible that they get to 5 wins and that's it this season. That they go 5-7. I mean, this thing
they're
could.
They're going to take his head.
Well, yes, if that happens, it falls off the rails. But you tell me, this is USC's remaining schedule, and this is why I just think they are circling the wagons on this one. Now, to no avail, because I do think Penn State is the better team, and in particular, I think Penn State is the better team at the line of scrimmage. And getting Anthony Donka back this week is not insignificant, presuming that Nicholas Singleton is in fact back at his form this week. That's a big deal on both counts. And I think on the Penn State side of things, you feel even better about this matchup with those 2 players back in the lineup here on Saturday. But this is USC's schedule remaining. And again, worth recapping real quickly here, because your perception alters and in some cases completely changes week to week, right? Of what you think depending on results and the eye test. And I want to get into that a little bit with Penn State here too, because I don't think it is very common for, in particular, college fan bases to underestimate their team. And I feel like Penn State fans as a whole, right? Are you not hearing from people as well? We're not number 4. I mean, give me a break.
We're the most overrated number 4 team in the country.
Yeah,
but someone's got to be there.
Well, and I want to get into that because, we'll get into that in a minute, because it's just interesting to me, because I don't know who you would definitively say, well, clearly this team is better than Penn State. I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of teams that you're like, I don't know. But I don't think the number 4 ranking is nearly as preposterous as a bunch of Penn State fans.
Well, I mean, it's Georgia and Alabama are behind us, so everybody can sit there and say, well, there's no way we're better than those 2 teams. But hey,
Alabama just lost to Vanderbilt.
They lost to Vanderbilt. And Georgia lost to Alabama. So it's just.
So you're telling me there's no chance Penn State could match up with a team that just lost to Vanderbilt?
Well, we better.
So anyways, we'll get into that. We have USC after Penn State has the trip to Maryland. I know it's a long trip.
It's a long trip.
That's a
we'll
W.
See.
But after that, Rutgers goes there. I am so curious to see that game. It is a long, long trip for Rutgers. No question about it.
And what
but I think Rutgers is perfectly designed to beat USC.
Yep.
That is an old school Big Ten. We're going to muscle up and grind out a win. I think that is, even though it's at home and it's Rutgers, I think that is a coin flip of a game in my mind going in. And I really like Rutgers' chances, because I think Rutgers is going to run the football extremely effectively against USC. So at the very least, I think that would be slight favorite. Certainly not a shocker, I think, at least to me, if USC would lose that one. Then they're at Washington, home with Nebraska, at UCLA, and home with Notre Dame. Is it possible USC, especially if it beats Penn State this weekend, gets on a run and ends up in the playoffs? I think if you're a USC fan, you're sitting there saying, yep, that's what we're looking for. I also think it is possible they lose to Penn State. They lose to Rutgers. They lose to Washington. They lose to Nebraska and Notre Dame. And even if you say, well, they're going to win at least one of those, that's 4 more losses. That gets you to 6-6 on the season. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying that schedule, and I think it is going to be difficult for Lincoln Riley to get the buy-in from that program if they lose this game to Penn State, that they're going to need to make that run down the stretch to get to, even 8 wins this season. So I don't think you can necessarily overstate the importance of this game for either program. Lincoln Riley may very well be coaching to retain his job here on Saturday. Like, that is the implications
I'm
there.
Looking at the schedules here.
And for Penn State, a loss here means, one, no margin for error the rest of the way. You can lose to Ohio State. But again, to me, it is not a certainty at that point, if you lose this game, that you're in the playoffs, even if you run the table, with the exception of Ohio State. And you run into this, we're going to get the recurring criticism of James Franklin and his inability to win, quote unquote, the big game. And regardless of rankings, regardless of records, I think the overwhelming majority of us, anyway, Penn State fans and media and community, would acknowledge this is a big game.
Sure.
For all of the
absolutely.
reasons.
I mean, put it in perspective. When did James get his 10-year contract? It's when that USC job opened up, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah. And
who did they hire? They hired Lincoln Riley. So think about James can put him in his casket in his grave this weekend. And, I'm not saying that he's going after that job. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying the reason James got his 10-year extension 6-7 years ago was because USC was after him. And then Penn State signed him to the 10-year deal. And then they hired Lincoln Riley. And now Lincoln Riley is on the chopping block right here. So it's pretty rather uncanny. And then talking about, USC. So they play Penn State this weekend at home. Next week, they're at Maryland at a 4:00 game. And we're talking about the traveling thing.
Yep.
This is a big thing. Okay. So they're coming across from west to east, and they're going to get back on the plane Saturday night. And they have a game that Friday night at home versus Rutgers. So they are going to be pressed, in my opinion, with their travel. It's pretty damn. But they had to expect this going in, and they knew that this was going to happen. But it's not easy. It's not going to be a very easy thing. But we've talked now for 6 months since the schedule came out. Rutgers is playing USC on the 25th of a Friday night, the 25th. They're playing Rutgers at 11 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
Now, we complain about having, the West Coast guys going to come in and play at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, imagine being the East Coast kid having to play at 11 p.m. your time, your biological clock saying it's 11 o'clock at night, and you're playing a football game. That's some crazy stuff. So this is what we were expecting when we had the 4 join the Big Ten, especially having to go to the East Coast, a.k.a. Maryland and Rutgers, farther east than us. But it's just it's bizarre. It's crazy because of how much pressure is going to be put on USC. And that's not – I mean, we sit here and say that, USC, it's not like an Alabama or like their whole world does not revolve around USC football. But I'll tell you what, that's a very proud program right there, and they do not like losing. And they're not going to like losing 3 or 4, maybe possibly 5 games this year, to the point where if he loses 4 or 5 games, I think he's gone. I mean, I think that's probably a guarantee, actually, that he'd be gone.
I think that's right. Yeah, they want to make a move now, especially with the move to the Big Ten. And this is
put that in perspective. Like, they put him in a situation where they're playing on the East Coast 4 times, 3 times a year. It's like, whoa, that's some crazy stuff, man. And then they're going to hold him accountable, which they will. But I mean, USC has a super, super, super proud tradition. No doubt about it. When USC is winning out there, they are the darlings of the LA sports scene. But when they're not, no one really gives a crap, and that's the easiest way to get fired, man. Interested to see how many people. It's not. I mean, you've never been in the Coliseum, nor have I. It holds 100,000, right? That's a heck of a big stadium right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of other just interesting side notes to this weekend. So at the most coming out of this weekend, the Big Ten will have 3 at the most, 3 undefeated teams. We know they'll have 2.
Oh, yeah.
Two is the least. Indiana, which is off this week, sits there undefeated, 6-0 on the season, and the winner of the Oregon-Ohio State game. Obviously, the loser of that game is no longer going to be undefeated, and Penn State is the only other team. So Penn State, winner of the Ohio State-Oregon game, if Penn State takes care of business at USC, and Indiana will be the only undefeated teams in the Big Ten. And the way that battle is shaping up, if Ohio State does go to Oregon and win that game, as we talked about on Tuesday, and Penn State takes care of business this week, I think then Penn State does take care of business against Wisconsin. And I think there's, at least in one of the polls, going to be a 1-2 matchup when Penn State hosts Ohio State on November 2nd. Ooh. Now, part of what will need to happen for that to occur is you're going to need Georgia to beat Texas. The issue is Georgia's already in front of Penn State in the coaches poll. And so if Georgia gets that win, I think they'll remain there. And they could leapfrog Penn State in the AP poll, even though they have the loss to Alabama.
Yeah. Strength of schedule, who they're playing, and all that stuff.
At worst, if Penn State wins out, it'll be 1 versus 3. But again, it could be a 1-2 matchup there when Penn State and Ohio State meet, and all of the hype and the hoopla that comes with it. And then you have, again, Washington coming in that following week. Washington is becoming an interesting team to watch in the conference. And as we sit here right now, Goon, you tell me who, right now, at least it feels like, no disrespect to Indiana, maybe I am disrespecting Indiana.
Yeah.
It feels to me like we clearly have our top 3, which are the 3 we thought at the start of the season. Yep. At least right now, it feels that way. We have Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. Those are the top 3 teams in the conference. We thought going into the season that it was going to be a battle for number 4. You would mention it. You're not sure Michigan's going to be able to hold up to that type of a season. Certainly looks shaky at this point for them. I don't know. Who do you think? Do you think Indiana is right now the 4th best team? I mean, it's a 6-0 record, but I'm looking at Nebraska. I'm looking at the way Washington is starting to put some things together.
Man.
Michigan still has a very good defense and a good running game. You still, this Illinois team, I think, is
that's
you want to keep your eye on them. I think that's a team that is
want them to win.
A lot. Well, Penn State certainly
want them
does.
To win. I
think Rutgers. I know they're coming off the loss to Nebraska, but I think Rutgers is still very good defensively, very good running game. Iowa was right there with Ohio State for a half. Now they kind of got the
so many
doors blown off in the second half, but I'm not sure I would say there's no chance for Iowa to sneak back into that conversation.
No, they're always going to be that team that's tough as hell. You know that it's like their MO, man.
And USC,
they
again,
will knock somebody off.
If USC gets the win, huge capital I, capital F, but if they get the win over Penn State, all of a sudden USC vaults back into that conversation as being one of the top 3 or 4 teams potentially in the conference here this season. So we don't know a lot, I guess, is my point as we hit nearly the halfway point of the season. And I think even maybe less so, it feels like in some ways in the SEC, where when you and same thing when you look at the remaining schedules, Goon, like is it possible Texas runs the table? Possible.
Yeah.
Possible they lose 3 games between now and the end of the season. And you can say pretty much the same thing in terms of running the table from here on out with Georgia, with Alabama, with Tennessee, with Ole Miss. And you have enough other teams there. We'll find out a little more about LSU this week, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. I mean, you've got a lot of teams that are dangerous. Kentucky. It's like, well, the whole on a given Saturday. And if those teams start to mount, it's not just the one upset and we're done with all of the schools I just mentioned, and they get a second big capture in terms of beating one of those top 4 or 5 teams in the conference. You talk about a conference that could end up just wild in terms of, all right, how do you pick between these 5 2-loss teams, over after you get past, maybe
scary part
one loss.
We're going to be complaining about the 13th and 14th team in the country. Like, oh man. But all of these teams, I mean, do you feel like the SEC is playing a tougher schedule than they normally have?
Well, they are.
Or are their teams getting better? Tennessee was down for a few years. Everybody was lining up and destroying Tennessee.
Yeah.
Ole Miss has been Ole Miss.
I mean, there is some of that, but they're playing a bit like because of Texas and Oklahoma coming in, and you had Alabama and Georgia playing each other. So now you're seeing these teams knock each other off, and actually, you're seeing less of those big matchups in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough,
I know
than
what
you are
I'm saying,
in the
because
SEC.
we always used to play each other all the time, and we used to tear each other apart like wolves in a den. And then the SEC they would have like two or three really big games a year, and whoever got through them would go to the national title, and that's pretty much the MO. But now adding in Texas and Oklahoma, there's no real patsies on there. I mean, again, Vanderbilt beats Alabama last week. I mean, I don't think I'd ever say that in my lifetime.
Yeah.
You got Texas is one of the number 1 teams in the country in some of those polls, and it's like, whoa, man. I don't see, but they got to go through. Are they playing A&M this year? Did that get picked up as a game?
Who's that? Texas? Yes, that's the last.
So they're
going
to So they're going to go back and restart that rivalry right there, and that's a game just like this weekend. You have no idea what's going to happen in that game. So Texas got their hands full. Alabama and Georgia all have their hands full. I mean, it just seems like adding those 2 teams in. There's 2 more guys out there who can knock off the big boys in the SEC. And then you again add in Vanderbilt and add in Kentucky and add in Ole Miss and Tennessee. They're like 4 teams who've been down for a while.
Yeah,
and now they're all they're rocking right now. And the SEC has got they are what we want to be with the depth.
Well,
we're 18 teams deep. They're what, 14?
Yeah,
but we don't see them. We're not playing Michigan. We're not playing Oregon.
Right.
We don't have Indiana. We don't have Rutgers, and they're considered 2 of the bigger teams now. It's like, man, it's all a little turned around, man. But that just makes it how important this game is this week. Huge implications for us this week.
Yeah,
it's a marquee win over a marquee name. That's the bottom line. I don't care if they say, well, USC is down this year. I don't care. Still Penn State being USC on the road. We said it Tuesday. The team from the Big Ten traveling out west or the team traveling east is 1-8. There's something to be said about that, man. That's not it's again, I don't want to keep harping on it and talking about it as an excuse, but it is not an easy thing to do. We were laughing off the air on Tuesday. Remember, I was like, well, I wonder what the hell they did in 1968 when we played UCLA out there. I mean, what do they do? Take a train to Kansas City, have practice, and then get out and then head out. I don't know. But I don't know why it's harder now. And I know I go back to what Coach was saying the other day. I just don't see the issue with having to go to Harrisburg an hour and a half, get on a plane, fly out. I don't see that as being an issue, unless you're going to try and make it an issue, which is what it's turned into, because that's all people are talking about.
It has garnered a lot of conversation this week. I've no doubt about that.
I've circled around a little bit, in thinking about it, because I was like, we're never going to use it more than twice a year. We're never going to, because it's the only football team who needs to go out there. They're not going to have direct flights in from LA, from Phoenix. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing is that, don't you think that puts the West Coast teams in a predicament having to get here? That works in our favor? I think it does.
Yeah.
I truly think it does. USC comes here, UCLA comes here. They have to go to Harrisburg, and then they have to drive up. It is what it is.
Agreed. I just don't think this is going to be an issue for very long. I could end up being proven wrong on that, but I am convinced that we are going to head back to a more regional schedule across the board in college football once all of the dust settles, and the dust isn't settling just yet on the conference realignments, and whether we end up with the 2 super conferences or we divvy up differently the 4 conferences, however it ends up being worked out, I just think we're going to get back to more of regional play. It just makes economic sense. Truthfully, it makes competitive sense as well, and I think it will create even more interest at the end of the day in the playoffs, because you're not going to see those teams except in the playoffs. Teams from other regions of the country, at least not very often. I may have a regular season game still scheduled here or there, but I think that's the direction we're heading.
And I think we're heading going to work. And I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. But do you think that they pick up Arizona State, Arizona, and sort of quasi build back the Pac-12 and call it the Big Ten West? Because I don't think USC and UCLA, Washington and Oregon are going to want to lose the Big Ten moniker, because it's the whole reason they came here was because of the money.
Yeah. However, I don't know how exactly it'll shake. The Big Ten and the SEC will be the power brokers, whether or not the ACC and the Big 12 or whatever that ends up becoming are also big players or not remains to be seen. Either way, I just think, again, whether it's the Big Ten says and kind of takes over half of college football in the SEC. And that's kind of, I guess, what I'm expecting to happen here over the next couple of years is let's join forces. But by joining forces, maybe the SEC and the ACC join forces and the Big Ten and the Big 8. But I think it's going to be, again, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be the power brokers. Mm-hmm. And then they will divvy themselves up into, all right, we have just Big Ten Northeast, Big Ten Southeast, Big Ten Midwest, Big Ten West, and same thing with the SEC. And you have largely. Do
we have to pick up more West Coast teams then?
Well, I think college football. Well, no, college football has those teams. It's just going to. It's how they divvy them up. But you're going to have X amount of teams in each conference, if you will, if we look at it that way. If there's 2 conferences, much like you have in the NFL, you're going to have
the AFC,
3 or 4 divisions, and you're going to play those divisions out to championships, and then you'll have however many wild card selections for the playoffs.
Well,
that's how I think it's going to play.
This is an honest question. Do you think the Big Ten will cease to exist, the name? You think the SEC? I don't think that those 2 conferences don't want to get rid of those names.
Yeah, I don't think it matters either way. You can
now, again, we're just talking about football.
Correct.
This is just football.
That is, well, yes, but in terms of the regional play, that's going to be across the board. You're going to see intercollegiate athletics, I think. I'll put it at 6 years. I think within 6 years, across the board, we're going to get back to regional scheduling. And of course, I still have no idea how this is all going to play out in terms of the Olympic sports and their existence, number one.
I still want to know why they went from 10 to 30 scholarships, and it was like that was a good thing, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a good thing for the 5 or 6 schools that maybe can afford it.
Precisely.
But you need more than that to be able to schedule your competitions.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it. We can sit here and talk until next Thursday about these exact conversations.
Yeah.
Is the Big Ten going to exist? Is the SEC going to exist? Like, we've already picked apart the Pac-12. So, like, do you think Washington State and Oregon State, where are they going to go? Do they jump out of the Mountain West or whatever they're trying to form right now? And
I think it all gets
crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it'll all be enveloped. However, whatever the agreements are, that it works out so that there's either 2 or 4 conferences, if you will, and then somehow out of that we're going to have 12 to 16
who's
teams,
lead
probably 16 teams.
Who's going to lead that is these West Coast teams that are in the Big Ten right now saying this is not worth it. I mean, they're going, and then USC.
Well, now it's worth it for them, though.
Financially, yes, it is. Yeah. But as a team-wise, it's not going to be financial if you're 8-4 every year.
Not,
I mean, you got Stanford and you got Cal playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I mean, come on, man. That's as bad as the USC having to go to, playing Maryland and Rutgers on the East Coast. It's nuts.
It's very, very
different. A lot of those guys and a lot of those players on a weekly basis to do that. And there's no easy way about it. I mean, we had talked 2 years ago when this first started coming out. Do you think that those 4 West Coast teams maybe have like a Midwest university where they could stay a week and practice type of thing? But I don't think any of them actually have back-to-back cross-country games. I think that they've set it up that way.
Yeah.
So
take a break here. We are coming back with more. It's the Lion Country Kia, Goon and Ironhead show right here on Sports Radio 98.7 The Fall.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
2 of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Haw-Baker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Haw-Baker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Haw-Baker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU.
Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox. The Goon and Ironhead.
We welcome back in here on this Thursday afternoon ahead of the Penn State USC game Saturday.
Huge.
3:30 kickoff at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, where Penn State all-time is 0-2 against the Trojans.
90 and 91.
Yep.
I didn't go there in 91. Somebody asked me the other day. I didn't travel that day. I was a redshirt freshman. I was in the dorms watching that game. It was like, horrible. It was bad. It was,
a little rough.
I think it was the week after we won 81-0 over Cincinnati.
I think that is right. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know. I mean, I know we lost in 90, but 91. But every time they've come east, we played them in that, the kickoff classic was we played them twice, right? We went 1-1 against them. Because Curtis, I think he was 96. I believe it was 96. Yes, it was 96 that we played the kickoff classic in the Meadowlands, and Curtis went off.
Yeah.
He had like 250 on him. I remember that day.
Yeah.
Because I was in the airport and got a page. This kid calling, please dial 972.
Oh, boy.
And the message was, hey, it's so-and-so from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, we don't need you to come down here.
We're good.
And he's like, we had a wide receiver get hurt, so we have to sign a new tight end or a wide receiver. So my bags went to Jacksonville. I was at the airport watching the game. I went down there early because I wanted to watch the game. So I'm watching the game, having a couple beers in the airport, and I get my buddy sit with me, and he comes in. He's like, "Hey man, you're getting text, or you're getting on the loudspeaker." So I call the number, and it's like, "Hey, this Jacksonville Jaguars, call this number." So I call them, and they were like, "We had a wide receiver get hurt." And this is when I knew my NFL was over. We had a wide receiver get hurt. We got to sign that wide receiver because I was going down, and the guy said, "You're either going to be on the active roster or practice squad, guaranteed. Just bring your stuff that you need for a couple weeks." I was like, "All right, So I pack up all my stuff and put it on a plane, and then I got paged, called the number, and the guy said, "Hey, we had a guy get hurt. We have to sign a wide receiver to our practice squad and this and that." So 2 days later, I'm reading. Well, that night I went and that's when I realized my NFL was over.
Huh.
And then I get home, and 2 days later, I'm looking at the transactions, and they signed a guy I was in Indianapolis with. It was another offensive lineman, and I was like, "You completely lied to me. No one got hurt.
Wow.
It was just the Colts. The Jacksonville Jaguars called the Colts and said, 'What's going on?' And they said, 'Don't touch him. He's hurt. His neck is bad,' and this and that." And that's when I knew I was blacklisted in the NFL. So my bags spent a night in the NFL with the Jaguars. So, and when I was back here coaching, and it was 5-6, and then Conlin came in. He was with the Giants then. And we were talking, and he remembered me from recruiting me to Boston College, and I was younger and all that stuff. And, guys I played with who knew him and stuff like that. And he was talking, and I brought that story up, and he goes, "Yeah, man." He looked at me and he goes, "It's a nasty effing business." And I was like, "I know. I get it now." But at the time I was just like, just be a straight shooter is all you ask. But that's just a tough business. And that's when I knew it was over. And that was late August, early September. And then I believe I went to an Eagles game in October. And I was sitting there. My buddy was the strength coach for the Eagles, and I was waiting after the game for him to come out of the locker room. And this security guard just kept on pushing, like, "Hey, the players are coming to play." I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care about the players. I said, "I'm here to see my buddy," and this guy keeps on pushing me back. And I'm like, bro. And I'm watching all these guys come out of the locker room. I'm like, I'm better than him. I'm better than him. I'm better than him. I know I'm better than him. I know I'm better than him. And the next day I was on a plane to Saskatchewan, Canada, because I was like, I called my agent and I said, "Just get me somewhere." I said, "I want to play football. I don't care where." I just could not believe I was sitting there watching these turds come out of the Eagles locker room. And I'm like, I can't believe that they drafted this guy. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. I can't even get a phone call. I ended up playing in Saskatchewan for the last 6 weeks of the season, and that was it. That was the last of my football career.
Yeah,
I was just like, it was painful. But I remember that USC game, and I was like, we were jacked because they just, USC was a big time favorite in that game, and Penn State whooped them up.
Well, And that's the other part. So Penn State's a 5.5 point favorite over the Trojans here in Saturday's game. And that feels about right to me as far as just because of, again, you're making the trip. I think USC coming off the loss is, in theory, going to be wanting to come out and prove itself. And I think there are still questions nationally as well, not just within the Penn State fan base, about, okay, how good really is this Penn State team? The one thing that has been lacking is a quick start here for Penn State.
Good point.
I do think if they, and not necessarily expecting it, given that it hasn't happened yet this year, but if they can get this would be, if you're going to circle one game where it's like, I mean, I guess Ohio State too, but like this would be the game where you want to get off to a fast start. And because I think if Penn State gets even just the initial touchdown, but certainly if it can get a 10-point or more lead in that first half, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, one, how quickly the fans turn, because I think they're ready to turn.
Yeah.
And two, how quickly
show up.
The finger pointing, how quickly the finger pointing within that USC team begins, and or questions about, okay, are we really any good? Are we a team that can get to be a top 25 team? And if you can plant those doubts and or concerns or questions within the fan base and certainly within the roster of USC, I just think it becomes likely. And listen, USC did a good job pulling away from Wisconsin in the second half, but they kind of lost it late against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they faded a bit against Michigan. Like, I think this is a team that if Penn State, again, can jump up on with Penn State's ability to make halftime adjustments, that's the one thing they have done an exceptionally good job of this season. They've owned the second and third quarters. If you can somehow get off to a good start here at USC, I think you have a chance to put the game away, have your most impressive win of the season, no questions asked, and really start to set the stage for what everybody is hoping will be a showdown game, regardless of how it goes, with Ohio State here in early November.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Oregon schedule, and I'm like, it just seems that USC has played a little bit more of the Big Ten beef than Oregon has. Oregon's played UCLA and Michigan State. You know, USC has played Wisconsin, Minnesota, and now Penn State. And they played Michigan.
And
so that was an absolutely huge game. So I go and watch that Michigan game because I believe that was the same day as our Kent State game, I think. It was like a total blowout game. So I ended up watching a little bit of that Michigan and USC game. USC had the game. USC gave that game away at the end. Gave it away with their tackling because they said, ouch. And I think that I would hope that our offensive line watched that and our coach has just been hammering them that, yes, they will quit. And our offensive line is a bunch of animals. They're a bunch of freaking mutants right now. I love the way they're playing. Like Mark Ingram said last week, they actually look like they want to just fold people and just bust them. And they're just embarrassed. And they just want to be super physical out there. And they have been. And if you watch that Michigan game, Michigan stayed with the run game. Of course, is what Michigan does. Run game, run game, run game. They had no right winning that game, but they broke off a 50-yard run late in the game because USC did not want to tackle that running back anymore. And if we can start that up early and make them say ouch early and quit early, it'll be the best West Coast trip we ever had. Can't leave them in the game though. You can't let them have an opportunity. But and again, we talk about it every week. We need to start better. We need to start better. We say it every week. And then what happens is we come out. It's not like James is not like harping on the start also. I'm sure he's just completely hammering it to the point where he's probably saying, you know what, no one even mentioned it. No one needs to mention the start. We've been talking about having a quick start for months now, years now, and it's not happening. Maybe we're talking about it too much and there's too much pressure on. I don't know. But we do need to get it. We got to have a good start. And that's going to be a tough thing with the travel and all that stuff. So, but with that saying, it's not like it's a brand new thing to these guys. We've been talking about it, and they've known this for how long. And lay it all on the field. You got a week off. I think that's that's the route they got to go, and just lay it all out there and just blow them out, get them going. And what are you saving yourself for? Let's get after it, man.
Yeah, and I think again the matchup to me clearly favors Penn State, as we've been talking about. If there's questions about USC, it is along the front primarily. Their skill positions are fine. They're good to elite there across the board. Very good quarterback, very good receiving core.
But Michigan
very good
beat
secondary.
that quarterback up.
Well, and so
beat him up. We need to do that.
Yes, and that is one of the things. There's a couple of things that I think just are. I'm curious to see how it plays out here on Saturday, and one of them is what is the approach Penn State takes, actually on both sides of the ball, but defensively with this USC offense, and how much do you try to kind of go all out to get pressure on? Right. How much do you rely on your front three or four lately to just go after it and trust that they can get it done? I think there's a lot of things, and it might be one of those that you let the first drive play out and see, all right, man, looks like we can get pressure with the 4. Or nope, USC's ready for that. We need to bring some other guys and, trust our secondary to be able to make some plays or hold in there with one-on-one coverage and trust that you can get to the quarterback or create enough confusion that they're not making the right decisions. And on the other side, I think people are misinterpreting. This is my opinion. I think Penn State looked at James Franklin and this staff looked at last year and determined that, and not just last year, but hey, what we're trying to do here is build a national championship team.
Yep.
Not just a playoff team. I know the playoffs is the next hurdle, but that's not what the objective here is. That Penn State isn't in this to make the playoffs. Penn State is one of maybe 20 schools at the most that I think realistically can say, yeah, we have that aspiration and it is attainable to whatever degree you think it's attainable, but it is. It's not the most far-fetched thing in the world to imagine Penn State winning a national title. But I think they looked at Michigan last year and said the route to a championship is great defense, quarterback that makes good decisions, and a running game that can overpower you. I don't think Penn State has a running game at this point that is overpowering the best teams out there, but I think that's what they're working toward. And I'm not sure they're not going to get there, let's say in the next month when Ohio State visits. I'm not sure they will, but I'm not sure they won't. But I think that is what they're trying to do, is we want to establish that we are going to physically beat you up, no matter who you are, or at the very least hold our own. And I think that has been probably the biggest bugaboo for Penn State fans. It's like, man, every time we go against Ohio State or Michigan, they are more physical. And so, and I think it's the right path, because I do think if you get the opportunity to host a game here at Beaver Stadium, right, being the better running team is going to pay huge dividends with a late season matchup here at Beaver Stadium. So that being said, I think they want to be in a position where they don't need to rely on the passing game. And I do think there's still questions about the receiving core. I think the receiving core is coming along fine. I think it's good. and hopefully it keeps getting better and better. Yep. But I also think that it is possible that if and when needed, the passing game can be wildly explosive. But if you have something that's working and you believe that at the end of the year, that is the formula that is going to allow you to truly compete for a championship, then I think you keep riding that until another team is good enough to take it away from you. And Ohio State may very well be good enough to take that away, and then we'll find out where you're at when you have to go to Plan B. But Penn State really hasn't had to go to Plan B, and I don't think you go to Plan B just for the sake of going to Plan B. There's a reason you have Plan A, and again, if it's working, to me, you stick with that. That makes perfect sense to me.
It's a huge game for us right now. Everything about it, really. I mean, this is a one of those like season. Not season changing, but a season like, what kind of season you're going to have. This is that first real challenge to see where we're at on a national level. Illinois, West Virginia, Kent State. They're all down. This is USC. USC is a proud football program, so we're going to see what we are made of, in my opinion, this weekend. And I think our guys know this and our coaches realize it. And then like, okay, you're saying it, 12 or 10-2 might not get in the playoffs. 10-2 might not even get in the Big Ten title game. So this is, I think that our guys realize how big of a game this is, that, you don't have the ability to lose 2 games this year. The ability to use 1, but let's not use that against USC and make the rest of the season a must-win situation.
Right.
We don't want that. No, we do not. So I did find out a little bit of info on the tickets, by the way, for a playoff game. It will be run by the NCAA, whoever's running the ESPN, whoever running the college football poll. But the season ticket holders will have their first shots at the tickets and this and that. But and then it goes into a lottery. Because we had talked about who was in control of these tickets. Do you have your season tickets? So how many season tickets does Penn State sell? 60,000 if you include the students? 80,000? I don't know.
I think it's more than that.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So they're going to put 70,000 people, have tickets, the availability of tickets to this stadium. And then what does the visiting team get? What are the the sponsors going to get? It's crazy. I know just completely went ADD on you right there.
No, that's fine.
But it's a huge thing. Is that how are they going to handle a home playoff? Who was in charge of the tickets? Now, this was somebody in Georgia who was saying this is how they're going to do it, but I don't know if that pertains to Penn State or was it just this guy's opinion. Well, it's a big thing, and then this game is, again, you don't want to lose this game because then you have to, in my opinion, because we're talking about our strength of schedule, we don't have the big wins if we lose to USC and lose to an Ohio State.
And it's interesting because I've been saying all along that it feels like this season, for the first time in a very long time, sets up very favorably for Penn State. And part of it was the schedule.
Yeah.
The caveat to that is if you do stumble somewhere along the way, that fortuitous setup could backfire on you because you're not going to have an Oregon on that schedule to fall back on.
Or Michigan.
Yes. And so it could potentially end up backfiring.
Yeah.
I do want to pick up real quick on the Oregon theme here too, because in the Big Ten championship game. So let's presume for the moment Ohio State does win that game at Oregon on Saturday night. And you're sitting there with and that Penn State does win the games it's favored in and also loses to Ohio State. I think that it is likely, certainly not definite, and there's 2, I think, real potential stumbling blocks, maybe 3 for Oregon after Ohio State. So they're at Purdue the following week. That is not a stumbling block. Purdue is Purdue might be worse than UCLA. I actually think they are worse. After seeing UCLA, the UCLA that showed up at Beaver Stadium, and watching, I haven't seen a lot of Purdue, but I did watch a little bit.
Again, and now you throw Kent State on there. That's 3 patsies and then the 2 bye weeks. That's 5 off weeks pretty much for Penn State.
Basically, yes. But they're then home. But this is the thing with Oregon. So they're home with Illinois. Dangerous game, and I am curious to see if Illinois can. Well, first of all, I'm interested to see if Ohio State establishes the line of scrimmage the way I'm expecting the Buckeyes to on Saturday night, and whether I'm right about that. And if they do, even though that's at Oregon, Illinois has more than a fighter's chance there, I think, going into it. Then they go to Michigan. Michigan season feels like it's teetering and could go kind of off the rails here potentially, or could end up being just a fine season after a national title year. Then they're home with Maryland, at Wisconsin, and then they have Washington at home at the end of the year. And Washington's another one of those programs, Goon, where I really thought they were going to fall way back after last year.
Should have, with what they lost.
Yes, just because of the personnel they lost, the new coach. Like, I thought all along Washington would get back fairly quickly to being a team that would be at least in the top 4 or 5 of the Big Ten. But I really thought this was a big-time rebuilding year. I have been impressed. Now, we keep talking about the things can happen and and it can change quickly. But right now, that game feels like it has the potential for that could be a loss when it's all said and done here for Oregon as well. You go to Washington, and there are some people and bemoaning that the whiteout game was going to be against Washington. And I, before the season started, again, I thought Washington was going to have a tough time not being one of the bottom 3 or 4 teams in the conference. They could end up being that number 4 team in the Big Ten when it's all said and done. They have a big one this week, and I do think this is a big one at Iowa. Again, I know a lot of people are Iowa's down, and
doesn't matter. They
Ohio
clip
State
somebody every year.
And I'm just telling you, Ohio State is elite. I have said from day one, I think Ohio State's the best team, most talented team in the country, and Iowa for a half, and I get it. It's 2 halves. There's a reason for that and all of it.
They went toe-to-toe.
But, yes, for a half, they were right there. And I think Iowa, like everybody else, wants to make a statement here against the newcomers to the conference. And that is a noon kickoff at Kinnick on Saturday, which means it's going to feel 9 a.m. for Washington. So I am certainly not chalking that up as an automatic W for Washington. If they can get that win,
sit back and look at that Michigan-Washington game and say, this is the national title from last year.
Oh, yeah.
Brand new coaches.
Yeah.
Whole new offense, whole new defense, everything.
Yep.
Nothing was the same. So
yeah. No, and that's welcome to
yeah. Like this is our national title game last year. Oh, but there's only like 11 guys on both teams who played in both games. It's like, whoa, what the hell?
But this is the thing. So we're talking about USC, and there's like 3 games there, that 3 or 4 games that like, they could win them and get on a run, or they could lose them all or split them, and it's kind of a blah season. How about this for Washington? So at Iowa, I would say that game could go either way.
Correct.
Going in. Then they have a bye week. Then they're at Indiana. Well, I feel like that game could go either way.
I wonder if Indiana people are going to actually start showing up to games.
Then they're home with USC. Feels like that game could go either way. They're at Penn State. I think that's a Penn State win, regardless of what happens between now and then. I just think the whiteout atmosphere, the length of that trip, and listen, again, they're coming off back-to-back weeks against Indiana and USC. Win or lose, that's the third in a pretty tough stretch of games there for Washington. Then they're home with UCLA and then at Oregon. So while I think Washington is better than I thought they were going to be, I mean, they're not lighting the world on fire. They're 4-2. They lost to Rutgers. They lost to Washington State. So again, it's not like when I say they've been surprising to me, they're not lighting the world on fire, and they could still end up being a sub 500 team when it's all said and done. I think this game at Iowa is one of the more intriguing matchups for me in the Big Ten this week, aside from obviously the Penn State USC game and then the Oregon Ohio State showdown.
I've been saying to you since the 4 came on, and that is they're going to have to realize that it's an every week thing. You know, there's not days off in the
with
Big
that
Ten.
Schedule, it really is.
It's really every week. You got to buck up because it's coming. It is coming. I mean, it's just like, the nicks and everything, they start getting a little more, the nicks and the bruises when you play a tough game. It takes another day for you to recover, and you got to do it again. And there's one more day less recovery, and then you got to do it again. And one more day. I mean, it catches up. You're not playing a wide open Pac-12 schedule like they used to, with the whole passing game. And that's why I think that, USC, how they played against Michigan, Michigan just wore them down and broke them. That's the way we got to play this game this week.
Yeah.
Have to play the game there this week. I don't want to go out there and everybody's trying to be, flashy and pizzazz and this and that. Just go out there. You have this mutant offensive line, a great running back, a very, very good quarterback. Just pound it down their throats, hit the play action passes down the middle of the field. One of the best tight ends in the country. Use them, utilize them. Boom, get in, get up. Put the doubt in their mind quick. Put them in there and say, you know what, damn, these guys are pretty good and they're pretty tough. Because I want them to sit there and say, just like, they did, I want them to say ouch like they did against Michigan. That's my dream. That's what I want to see happen. And I hope that's where the way they're going to coach and play this game.
One of the best tight ends.
Yeah, I'll give them that. I'll give them that.
Come on.
Yep.
We'll take a break here. We're back with more.
Future Mackey.
It is the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube on WFXS Pleasant Gap State College, better known as Sports Radio 98.7 The Fall.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Haw-Baker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Haw-Baker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Haw-Baker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
WFXS, once again.
Your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority, WFXS America.
98.7, the Fox State College. The Goon and Ironhead.
We welcome you back in here on another gorgeous Thursday afternoon. Beautiful autumnal day.
The sun rose today. I can't believe it.
In the Valley of Happiness. Lots to get into here. The Dear Goon will be departing a little early today, so I thought I'd shock everybody and maybe talk some Penn State Wrestling in the final stretch of the
shot glasses ready
program today. And there is lots to talk about, that is for sure. And including some PIAA rule changes that are affecting the, State College wrestling team in particular. But, kick that around perhaps a little bit in the final couple of portions of the show today.
Do you want to talk? It's officially Eagle season in Philadelphia.
Goon, how are you feeling? Yes,
depression has set in.
Francisco Lindor, man. This Francisco, whether it's Cabrera, Lindor, they're just out for the Pennsylvania baseball teams. Oh,
Lordy. Yeah, that was a painful one to watch last night because it's like you just saw it coming. I mean, you knew 1-0 was not going to handle that game, and 4 hits throughout the game is a mess. That's a disgrace, and you can't not hit the whole playoff series.
The Mad Turtle is a big Fernando Tatis fan, and he has himself convinced, and thus a Padres fan. And he came home from school yesterday and wanted to watch the Phillies-Mets game, and he's like, I'm rooting for the Phillies. I'm like, okay, any reason for that? He's like, yeah, they're going to be easier for the Padres to beat. I'm like, oh, man. Like, you better not let Goon hear that.
Dude,
so, of course, I share it with him.
My fear going in was exactly what happened, and that was the same thing the Phillies did the last 3 seasons. That's get into the playoffs with the wild card, get in hot late in the year, and just steamroll through the playoffs. And they've done it. They took care of the Braves and the Phillies in ridiculous in 6 games.
Well, the
7 games total.
The thing is, so the 2 things that obviously hurt Philadelphia, the bottom half of the lineup with virtually nothing. Production at all.
You're starting Weston Wilson last night.
And then, but that bullpen, Goon, I mean, it is almost inexplicable that pen goes from what it was to
the whole year,
an 11 point, what was it, 3.7 or whatever it was, ERA in that 4-game series where they just got crushed and could not retain a lead or give the Phillies a
pass
chance.
Balls, this and that. It was just a mess, man. It was a lot of everybody.
The
big boys didn't hit.
The one thing, and listen, I'm rooting for the Padres as well. But regardless, the one thing that cannot happen, can we not all agree?
New York.
Yes, as right-thinking Americans, we cannot have once in my lifetime was one way too many of a Subway series. We cannot allow. I don't really care how any of it plays out now, except that we cannot have a Yankees versus Mets World Series. Like, that just can't happen. So I'll be rooting mightily for the Royals tonight and then in Game 5. And if somehow the Yankees win that series, I will be rooting mightily for probably the Detroit Tigers. They just feel, I know
Detroit?
it's, well, I just think they're going to advance.
Well,
I have a couple of buddies who are big Cleveland fans, so
so do I.
I'm not. I'm happy. I'll be happy for them. Again, I really have no dog in the fight, and I have no particular passion for, as much as I despise the Browns. I really
and I don't want to
could care less one way or the other.
Yankees, Dodgers either.
Indians
I don't want the New York,
Guardians.
LA, and then Major League Baseball. This is the greatest World Series in the history of the World Series.
Yeah, I will say from a star
unless Ron Say and
standpoint,
Steve Garvey are playing, I'm not watching.
I will say, having the one thing with that, and I will be a Dodgers fan if that happens, just because, again, it's the Yankees. But it would be, certainly everybody knows you'd love to have the New York, LA markets and all of that. Major League Baseball would love that. But having Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge being like that is a showcase worthy matchup for sure. Buddy. However, I will say, I think any of the teams remaining, there's enough star power there, and there's enough draw. I think
if it was Philadelphia and San Diego in the next round, I mean, people are like, "Oh, it wouldn't be New York or LA," and I'm like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's still East Coast, West Coast, still two big markets, and two great storyline franchises.
I think the Detroit and the Guardians actually have good followings nationwide because a lot of people have left those cities.
Yes,
but they still keep their allegiances to those teams.
Yeah,
let's not kid ourselves. Not many people live in Detroit. Not exactly a beautiful place to live. I mean, the Detroit area, but there are a lot of people. I will say what
they are doing. That there is a revitalization effort going on, and man, what they have
done. That wrestling?
Yeah, if you've not been there, and I think I've told the story before in there, I truly was dreading not the wrestling, obviously, and I knew we'd make it work no matter what, but the previous NCAA tournament in Detroit was a disaster from a coverage standpoint, and I mean, there was nothing around.
Was it the Joe Louis Arena? Or was
yes,
okay.
and it was there's nothing around there. It was the parts that we saw, at least of Detroit. It was like borderline depressing. And while I knew we were going to different arena, and I knew they had built up. It's just hard when you've been somewhere and you have the impression. And I'm just telling you, like, I'm overstating it slightly when I tell you I was dreading going there. But it's like, man, of all of the places we could be going. And now, having gone there, I will tell you, if they put Detroit back in the rotation in 2029 or 2030, I'm more than okay with it. It is a really neat area with a lot of things for fans to do right at the arena and right within a block. But also, I mean, if you go just a couple of blocks either way, there's some neat. Obviously, you can see the football stadium, but there's
baseball stadiums right there.
Yep. But there's just a lot to see and do. I'll just leave it at that.
I knew I liked that place when I walked in, and there was is it Leonard Nimoy, the painter who does the abstract, like bright fluorescent pictures?
Yep.
But they had Gordie Howe, they had the Bad Boys, big pictures in this, and then they had Darren McCarty just beating the tar out of Claude Lemieux. That night, and that was like, dude, that's how you celebrate a freaking hockey team, man. That was absolutely beautiful. So I remember leaving there. The arena, it was the Little Caesars arena, right? That's all they were, or Papa John's. Maybe Papa John's or Little Caesars, one of the two.
I think it's Little Caesars. I think I was right.
Yeah, because that's out of Detroit. You're right, because Papa John's is out of Louisville. So Little Caesars, you walk out and you see the football stadium right down the road, and then you see the baseball stadium right there.
Yeah,
and there's bars and restaurants everywhere, and everything is cleaned up. It's like, because that was our worry too, was getting to and from. Now, there were a couple roads. We went on the back roads a little bit, and we were literally having to go left lane, right lane, right lane because of the potholes, and then having all the old neighborhoods that were there that they just completely demolished. But that Detroit downtown scene was pretty freaking awesome. And then the arena with the ceiling, remember how they had the American flag on the ceiling? They had it waving, and then it was St. Paddy's Day, so they had the Irish flag waving and stuff like that. And it was just an awesome, awesome, awesome environment. And I remember the suite that we had like 6 TVs on it. So I'm like, I'm watching NCAA basketball tournament. I'm watching the wrestling live. I'm watching, the wrestling I can't really see down there that far. Each place had a fireplace, a little fire pit in there. So it was very homey. Let's just say that.
At the end of the day, I'm okay if it's Detroit. I'm okay if it's Cleveland. I'm okay if it's Kansas City. I just don't want the Yankees in there in the World Series.
Ooh.
And I'm okay if it's...
I'm not gonna lie. I sort of like the Yankees. I always have. Yeah. And it's crazy.
It's disgusting.
Because I'm not an A-Rod fan whatsoever. I just don't see A-Rod. He's not a Yankee to me as much as he tries to play that off. But I've always loved Derek Jeter. I've always loved the Yankees. There's guys on the team that I've always just truly loved and respected.
By the way, Steven Natarasa continues to rocket on Dancing with the Stars.
So he's made the cut 3 straight weeks now?
Yeah, I think he and his partner, who I'll be honest, I don't think she's the ugliest human being on the planet.
You may have said that once or twice.
I'm just throwing it out there. I think they finished with the 4th highest score in this last, and he continues to win people over. Like, he is just...
He's like Jason Kelsey. He's just hitting home runs all over the place.
He is just a fun kid. And he did like a little pommel horse bit. And I don't think Gene Simmons quite knew who he was or why he's there. He's like, I don't know what that was. Yeah, he was the guest. But he's like, I don't know what that was. And everybody else is like, it was the pommel horse, dude. But he did like a little part of his routine as part of the performance.
I don't know what you're doing there, but it was one of those things like kissing right back in the 70s. Everybody has copied it.
Been a ton of fun to watch him continue to have fun and to cash in on the fame that comes with.
Are we going to talk about the Golden Bachelorette next too?
Bronze medal. Oh, I can't believe! Don't even get. No, I'm
not going to lie to you. My wife is like, "Thank God I can watch the Golden Bachelorette now."
Oh boy.
Yeah, Phillies are done, so we can watch the Golden Bachelorette now. Still can't get in the Dance with the Stars. So
yeah,
okay, you're a
Buccos
fan. I get it, but I'm like sitting there and I'm like, do I stop watching baseball because because the Phillies are out? Yeah, I'm mad, I'm depressed, I'm upset, but I will still watch all the games. And I think that the Dodgers Padres is an unbelievable series. I think that I'm just not a Padres. Tatis to me just drives me bonkers, man. Just absolutely drives me bonkers the way he acts. Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
and then they sit there and taunt the fans, and he's gyrating to the fans, and they start throwing stuff at him, and they're getting fans kicked out. It's like, dude, you're the one who's inciting this.
Yeah, it's a draw.
I will say that when Profar robbed Mookie Betts' home run the other night, he robbed it, and then he ran in about 15 feet and then started doing this to the fans, and then he showed them the ball because no one had any idea. And then Mookie's going around almost to third base when they realized that, damn, he caught that ball. I thought that was pretty good. But then the fans get mad at that, and they start throwing stuff because they were dressed up. They were Philly fans dressed up as Dodgers fans. I don't know if you knew that. That's how the national media portrayed it. So the Philadelphia fans were dressed up as Yankees fans or Dodgers fans, and they were
sneaky,
harassing people. That's what they do.
That is what they do.
Yep. No one else does anything bad in the world.
All right. Prediction there, dear Goon, for Saturday. What are we thinking?
I think it's going to be a tight game because of obviously our travel and this and that, how we start. And I think that USC's they got to play scared. They truly do, and
I think they're going to play inspired football.
Yeah,
I really do.
They're just like they're not going to just roll over, and if that would be great if Penn State goes out there and makes them roll over and say, "Hey, we're done," because that's ultimately what I would like to see. But I got us by 7 points late in the game. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah,
I truly think it's going to be a very good game. We match up well. They match up well. It's still Penn State USC at the Coliseum, so really looking forward to it. Another thing I'm worried about is 85 degrees out there, so that might play into the whole, dehydration and cramping and stuff like that. So you got a 6-hour flight Friday or Thursday, and then, you better start pumping because, when I travel, and I'm a fat overweight slob, so I actually do dehydrate a little bit more when I'm in, when you're decompressing and stuff like that. So they really, really, really have to take care of their legs and be ready to go hydration wise. So
yeah,
I got us coming out of this late in the game, making USC say ouch the way that Michigan did, and I would be very happy with that.
I am with you. As I've been saying all week, I think Penn State may end up pulling away late and even a little more comfortably. I don't care if it takes a bizarre, wild twist right at the end and they win by a point.
Yep.
You get a win this week,
Correct.
It is mission accomplished. It is find a way to win. I don't care how pretty it looks. I don't care whether you're covering. Find a way to win this game and get back to business here with the bye
Penn
week.
State's never done it before at SC, so we're 0-2 there. So James, there's your new record. You know, you do something Joe didn't do.
Goon, we will talk to you again on Tuesday.
Yeah, boys and girls, have a good weekend. We'll be here watching the game Saturday. If everyone wants to come out, come on.
Appreciate it. And we will be right back. I will be right back with more of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here from Quaker Steak and Lube after this timeout.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing and State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen Baker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen Baker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen Baker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox. The Goon and Ironhead.
And we welcome you back in here on this Thursday. Again, the dear Goon is off and ready to start the weekend. He'll be back on Tuesday. We have Penn State USC coming up 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. after the conclusion of that Penn State USC game. You can listen for special episode of Behind the Wall with Landon Tangwall. He'll break down the Nittany Lions matchup with the Trojans and give you an opportunity to get his perspective as a former player on the game and what transpired. And it is a big game. It's one of those things where you just, if you're a Penn State fan, you wish USC had taken care of business and won the game at Minnesota, just because it's the difference in national perception. And again, it's a 1-touchdown game there at Minnesota, but because Minnesota wins it by a touchdown and USC doesn't win it by a point, this goes from being a matchup between a couple of top 10 programs and instead now an unranked opponent in USC, not in the top 25, and the Nittany Lions. And the downside there is obviously a win, while monumental in some ways here from the Penn State perspective. From the national standpoint, it's, well, okay, good for you. You won a game against an unranked opponent on the road. Congratulations. And, there's your confetti. The other disappointing component to it is if you lose now, it becomes, it's not going to be as monumental as Vanderbilt beating Alabama, but I mean, it's an unranked opponent knocking off a top 5 program. It becomes the latest in the line of big upsets, is the way it'll be portrayed anyway, as again, an unranked team knocking off a top 5 and previously undefeated squad. So it'll be in many different ways a devastating loss. And even though I think in the Penn State community it'll be a celebrated win, I don't think it's going to be a win that gets a lot of credit on the national front, and especially if it is a win that's pulled out late. All of that being said, again, I'll reiterate, it doesn't matter if Penn State wins ugly, if it's a gift turnover, and you have to find a way to win this game if you're Penn State. If this team this year is to get where it's trying to get to, and I think most Penn State fans at the start of the season, it was kind of playoff or bust, and that is certainly still the case. But I really think if this team hosts a playoff game, maybe we'll pose that. Maybe we'll pose some sort of give you a chance to weigh in on our Facebook page or something here. If I go back to the start of the season, I thought if Penn State went 10-2, again, automatic, they'd be a playoff team. And I thought, therefore, this would be a successful season. Not wildly successful, not one worthy of parades or anything like that. But, man, you finally broke through, got into the playoffs, another 10-2 season. Even if you lose in the playoffs, it's okay. With the way this season is playing out and the way the schedule is playing out, and again, the perception and perspective there could change in the coming weeks, but it does not feel at the moment like this is a great schedule. I think Illinois is going to lose a couple more games. I think USC is going to lose a couple more games. I think Minnesota will lose a couple of more games. So that, and Washington, I think, is going to lose several more games. So I don't think, and even West Virginia, I mean, if you're a Penn State fan, you're hoping West Virginia and Illinois get hot here and kind of run the table down the stretch. USC after this week, you'll be rooting for, and all of that. Even if all, best case scenario plays out, there's not a marquee signature victory opportunity even for Penn State, save for obviously Ohio State and that trip to Beaver Stadium. So I think the perception is going to be, even at 10-2, if you lose that first round playoff game, that it really is just the same old for Penn State, and they can't win the big game and all of the things that people have been saying for the last several seasons and beyond, but certainly the last several seasons, which is, it's great. Penn State takes care of business against the teams it's supposed to beat, but never knocks off one of the teams that it's not supposed to. And I'm talking, again, this is more recent, coming out of the pandemic since. And I just don't think this is going to feel like a step forward now if Penn State goes 10-2 and then loses in the first round of the playoffs. And especially if it loses this game at USC, I don't think the perception or even the reality is that Penn State will have taken a step forward as a program this season. I think Penn State at this point needs to go 11-1. And I really think needs to win a playoff game or get a first round bye. I mean, if they're one of the top 4 teams, even if you lose then in the quarterfinals, I think that's acceptable. But I think anything short of that, being one of the final 8 teams standing, is going to feel kind of hollow, and especially if it is a 10-2 regular season, because that means whether it's USC this week or you end up losing, like at Wisconsin or at Minnesota, or even I think worse would be losing at home in the whiteout game with Washington. But if you lose any one of those games, at least Michigan and Ohio State, you felt like you were losing to 2 elite teams. I don't think any of the other teams outside of Ohio State, not only do I not think they're elite, but I mean, they're not, they're not going to be playoff contending teams. So I don't think they're even, what was the, we're great, we're just not elite. None of those teams are great even. So that perspective for me has changed, and I think this team to feel like, all right, yep, this was a season in which the program moved forward, in which you took that next big step. I think you've got to be one of the final 8 teams in the playoffs, and I think you've got to get through the regular season here with an 11-1 record, and obviously that starts with a win here over USC in the Coliseum. That being said, I do think you can go too far the other way, and I've seen a lot of comments this week that this is a must-win. Listen, if Penn State loses this game, and I realize the likelihood of losing this game and then turning around and beating Ohio State, not very high. But we're seeing crazy things happen this season. So in the moment, a loss here to USC, devastating, I think. It is going to be awful in the moment. That being said, if Penn State, and it is a huge if, but if Penn State then turns around and knocks off Ohio State at home, all will quickly be forgiven. If this team goes 11-1 and the one is to one of those other teams, whether it's USC, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Washington, whatever, if you're getting the W over Ohio State, I think most fans would sign up right now for that. Yep, if we can go 11-1 and stub our toe against one of these other teams and get the win over Ohio State, sign me up. I'm good with that. Now, again, I think it is very unlikely you're going to lose to one of those teams and then also beat Ohio State. But listen, I would have told you it's absolutely insane to think that a team is going to beat Georgia and then turn around and lose to Vanderbilt. So it's college football. It's college sports, and crazy things do, in fact, happen. All right, I do want to turn attention just to Penn State Wrestling here a bit. Of course, the schedule was released earlier this week. I actually caught part of a podcast with Bo Nickel, and I've been telling people, not quite in the words that Bo Nickel was using, but the Penn State has had some great wrestle-offs over the tenure of Cale Sanderson as head coach here. But this year's, and I talked about it a few times last year, that if you just sent Penn State's backups, and when I say backups, more accurately, it would be the non-starters, because there are guys that are going to redshirt, or last year were redshirting, that, again, I wouldn't necessarily designate as backups, but not the starters for a given season. And I thought last year's team, with its backups, or more accurately, the non-starters, could field a team that would finish in the top 5 at the NCAA tournament. I would submit that this year's team could sit all of the guys who will end up in the starting lineup, and we don't know who for sure those 10 guys are, but I think this year's team could sit all 10 of whoever it ends up being and still be in the hunt with all reserves or non-starters, be in the hunt. I'm not saying they would win the national title. I think Iowa's got an extremely good team. Ohio State is a very good team, and I think Oklahoma State, and there's some others that I think by the time the season ends could be right there as well in that battle for second at the NCAA tournament. But when you look at some of the guys that won't be in the starting lineup, and the other caveat here is that these individuals would be healthy. So some of these guys may not be there because of health issues. And but if everybody was healthy, like an Aaron Nagao at 133, I don't think is going to go, at least not out of the gates here with physical issues this year. I think when you look at this freshman class, which, Connor Mirasola and Zach Ryder, what they could do, what I think Luke Lillidahl will do here as a first-year collegian, there's a lot of talent, whether it's Tyler Kasak or Alex Facundo that ends up not being in the starting lineup. Again, either of those guys capable on a given day of probably beating anybody in the country there at that weight. And you go right on down the line. And Bo Nichols said he thinks that the wrestle-offs in many cases are going to be more challenging than the NCAA finals for this year's team. And I do think there's some matches there that are NCAA finals worthy in terms of wrestle-offs that will occur in the Penn State wrestling room. It is a truly astounding assemblage of talent that Cale Sanderson and Cody Sanderson and Casey Cunningham have amassed here. And I think this team is going to be better than it was a year ago, than last year's team. I do think it is unlikely that the margin of victory will be more than it was a year ago. A lot of things lined up to allow Penn State to win by 100 points, but I do think that Penn State can set another scoring record this year. And I really don't think I don't think the team or fans, I don't think you necessarily say if they don't win X amount of championships or don't have X number of All-Americans, then it's not a successful season. But I also would not put limits on what this team is capable of doing in terms of the individual accolades at all 10 weight classes. I really think if this team stays healthy and if this team progresses the way you would think it would from start to finish of the season, meaning each of the individuals, that come March, Penn State will have legitimately 10 title contenders. Now, I'm not saying there will be 10 finalists. I'm not even predicting that there will be 10 All-Americans. I am telling you, though, that this team will put out a wrestler at each weight class that you're going to look at and say it is conceivable that they could beat anybody out there. I think that is the case here this year. However it plays out. And had many people ask, and I do think Luke Lillidahl will be the starter at 125, and I think he is college ready and will burst onto the scene. Again, exactly where he fits out of the gate, exactly where he'll finish up, I don't know, but I know he's going to be competitive with anybody he faces, and he'll learn from any experiences, wins or losses, early in the season and make adjustments. And with the staff he has and with the competitive nature and just the skill set that he has, I just have no doubt that by the end of the season, he'll be right there in the hunt. Now, Braden Davis was right there last year. He was, and didn't get on the podium. And if they had wrestled again a week later, he might win the whole thing. And they wrestled again a week later, he might finish fifth. And again, and I don't know exactly where Luke Lillidahl fits in. I just know he does fit in somewhere in that upper pantheon of 125 pounds here in the upcoming season. Speaking of Braden Davis, it's a young man who's made tremendous strides even from last year when he won a Big Ten title and went in as the number 1 seed at the NCAA tournament. And moving up a weight class, I think, is going to be nothing but beneficial for him. And I think he is another guy. He's in a loaded weight class. 133 might be the deepest weight class in the country again this year. And much like last year at 125, I think Braden Davis by the end of the year is going to be a guy capable of winning it all. And I think there's going to be a handful of guys that are going to be right in the same boat. And I think there's going to be a bunch of kind of coin flip type of matches there that will ultimately determine who has the most success when the postseason rolls around. But I don't think there's a lot separating a lot of those top guys, and I think Braden Davis will be right in that mix by the end of the season. 141 is going to be interesting because it's amazing what one move can do to perception. And I've talked to, I guess I'm a little surprised at how many people now assume that Bo Bartlett is the clear 3 here at 141, and that Andrew Alirez and Jesse Mendez are clearly now better than Bo Bartlett. To me, it is a coin flip between all 3 of those guys. And I sign me up to watch any 2 of them wrestle each other anytime. I think it's going to be wildly entertaining and good wrestling. I think Bo Bartlett is another guy that just keeps getting better and better. I have no doubt Mendez has continued to improve, and Alirez, the same thing. I think all 3 of those guys are elite. All 3 of those guys are capable of winning national titles. Obviously, there's only one guy that will end up on top of the podium, but I think Bo Bartlett has as good a chance as any of the 3. And, you know, one of them, I think, in all likelihood, and there's some other guys that could come in and spoil the party. But I think at the end of the year, if all 3 stay healthy, it'll be those 3. And wouldn't surprise me if it's Bartlett, Alirez, Mendez, if it's Alirez, Bartlett, Mendez, if it's Mendez, Alirez, Bartlett, Mendez, Bartlett, Alirez. None of those results would surprise me. I think there's not much separating those guys. I think Bo Bartlett will be ready to go. I think he's worked on some things to improve his chances to both get in and finish off on shots here in the upcoming season that will give him an excellent chance to be the guy atop the podium at the end of the year. But I think it's, again, going to be a fun, exciting race between those 3, and we'll see. There may be some other guys that emerge there as well. I don't certainly rule out that possibility either, but at the start of the season, certainly expecting those 3 to be at the top here as the season unfolds. 149, probably the biggest excitement for me is seeing Shane Van Ness get the opportunity to get back in there and compete as a healthy wrestler and get the opportunity to do what I think he was on his way to doing last year, which is winning a national title. I just think it may take him a month or 2, and it may not, but it may take him a month or 2 to really round into form here and get the matches under his belt that he needs. But I think Shane Van Ness is going to be awfully, awfully tough to beat, and is going to be one of the more exciting wrestlers for anybody to follow here in the country. 157 is going to be a wild battle, I think, between Tyler Kasak and Alex Facundo. I think both of these young men are capable of winning national titles. I think they're both among the top 5 or 6 guys, night in and night out, and they might be among the best 2 or 3 guys when it's said and done. I think it's going to be very tough for whoever isn't the starter there, and it's a luxury to have that type of depth at any weight class, and Penn State has several weight classes where it's going to have that type of depth. But I think the opportunity there for guys to continue to push each other is only going to help strengthen the overall roster and team as the season moves along. Obviously, Mitchell Messenbrink is just a very special wrestler at 165, and I think is going to be as exciting and as dominant a wrestler as we have in the NCAA ranks here in the upcoming season. 174, Levi Haynes moving up a couple of weight classes, I think has a chance to be, well, I mean, I guess he already is. I was going to say a chance to be one of the real stars in all of the sport. I think he'll solidify, maybe I should better put, his position as one of the real ambassadors for the sport. Just a tremendously nice kid, good person, great ambassador for the sport, and certainly a very special talent. And I think it's just going to be fun. I think, much as we said when we were watching the Jason Nolfs and the Bo Nichols compete, or going back to the David Taylors and the Ed Ruths, or Zane Rutherford and all of the guys. I'm not meaning to leave anybody out. Obviously, Aaron Brooks falls into that line. I think you just need to sit back and appreciate you have the opportunity to watch an era where this team gets to roll out Bo Bartlett and Shane Van Ness and Levi Haynes and Mitchell Messenbrink and Carter Starachi. And I think as the season goes along, Josh Barr, and we're going to put him right there in that category, and Greg Kirkfleet. And to imagine a roster with 3 or 4 of those guys, let alone all of those guys, would be very special. And so I do think Penn State fans are in for a real treat, and I think Levi's legend will just continue to grow. Certainly Carter Starachi's legend will continue to grow. I do think he'll get a really good test right out of the gate here with Parker Kakaisen, and I think Kakaisen is a tremendous wrestler, and the returning national champion, but I also think a guy that just does a great job representing the sport, a guy that keeps getting better. I have no question in my mind he'll be a better wrestler in this all-star meet against Starachi than he was a year ago. But Carter Starachi is just a little different. And even by standards of greatness, Carter Starachi is just wired a little different when it comes to the competitive drive that he has. But I do think it's going to be a fun match to watch and see exactly where he's at and where Parker Kakaisen is at with him at the outset of the season. And then obviously I suspect we'll have a chance to compare and contrast where the two of them are at come season's end. I do think those two are going to be the class of the field at 184 pounds. And then again, I think Josh Barr is maybe a little underrated because I think that is a guy that, as the season goes along, is going to be right there in the national title hunt. And then obviously Greg Kirkfleet will be the favorite at heavyweight. I do think the test he'll get in that NWCA All-Star Classic is going to be a good one as well. And I was on another podcast earlier this week, and we were talking about that matchup and just kind of how dominant Kirkfleet has been. I do think Nick Feldman is I think the way I put it on the podcast earlier this week was, if there is a guy, and I don't know that there is, but if there is a guy that can challenge Kirkfleet this year in the collegiate ranks, I think it would be Feldman. I just think that guy is also a driven competitor, a guy that's going to make a big step forward, and he was obviously terrific a year ago, but I think he'll make his biggest jump from one season to the next this year in terms of his overall game. Now, I also think Greg Kirkfleet continues to get better and better, and I just think is such a awesome combination of power and speed that it becomes really difficult for somebody else to be able to really get into that stratosphere of wrestling. But if you pinned me down and said, man, there's going to be one guy that's going to give Kirkfleet a run this year, there may be other guys out there. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right, but my expectation would be Feldman is the one guy that I think could maybe give him a go this season. Schedule came out, of course, earlier this week. I do think it's an exciting schedule from the standpoint of getting some different teams on the schedule. I know Drexel and Wyoming are not traditional powerhouse names in the sport, but I think I think it's good that Penn State continues to, first of all, that continues to renew the rivalry with Lehigh year in and year out. I think that is important. And I think it's important for the history of the sport as well as the tradition of those two programs that they continue that rivalry annually. But I also think it's important that Penn State does schedule other Pennsylvania teams. And I think they've done a good job under this coaching staff of trying to reach out and get other programs scheduled over the course of the years. One from Pennsylvania, and they tend to get one from Pennsylvania and one from the western part of the country. And I think that's good for Pennsylvania wrestling. And I think it's good for the sport as a whole in terms of going out west, because it helps generate interest. And Penn State, I'm presuming, is making the return trip out to Wyoming next year. And I think that is a big deal for Wyoming wrestling and for the opportunities that that program has to continue to build and grow both its fan base and just the program as a whole. So I like that Penn State continues to do that type of thing. I think I've mentioned several times that Nashville's long been on my bucket list of places I've never been that I want to visit. So from a personal standpoint, I'm thrilled that they're going to Nashville for that Journeyman Collegiate Duels. But I do think the matchups there are also fun. They'll wrestle Binghamton, which again is a smaller program, and I think it's nice for them to have the opportunity. You have Arkansas Little Rock, who kind of burst on to the scene last year. They're the newest Division I program, and last year got their first All-Americans, pulled off some major upsets in dual meet action, and I think this will be a really cool opportunity for the Arkansas Little Rock kids and that program to be able to test itself and measure itself against Penn State. And I think it's a neat opportunity for Penn State to face a program that maybe has a little different style with some of its kids and is clearly one of the real rising programs in the sport these days. And then you get a really good test against a Missouri team that I think is going to be very good in the upcoming season. Not sure they're going to be quite where Iowa and Oklahoma State and maybe Ohio State are, but not sure if they stay healthy, if maybe they won't be by the time the season ends. It's Missouri's been a very good program here for a long period of time under Brian Smith, and I think that's a nice opportunity again to face a team that you don't normally see if you're Penn State during the course of the dual meet season. And then of course you have big matchups at Nebraska, at Ohio State, and then the 2 Jordan Center duels on successive Friday nights. Last Friday night in January against Iowa, first Friday night in February against Michigan. And I think, having the Big Ten championships out in Evanston, Illinois, on the campus of Northwestern, and then and there's some history there with the Midlands and all of that in that arena. So I think that's kind of a neat opportunity. And then obviously a lot will be made of Penn State and the NCAA wrestling championships returning to Philadelphia, which is where really it all began here under Cale Sanderson and his reign at Penn State, as Penn State won its first national title under Sanderson and just its second in program history in Philadelphia in 2011. And now the Nittany Lions get to try to bring it home again right here in their home state, and could do so with a historic run. Chance that, again, I just think if this team wrestles up to its capability, and Penn State traditionally has done that or very close to it with this coaching staff. If it does that, I really think Penn State has an excellent chance to match the 10 All-Americans by the, I think, 2001 Minnesota team, and also has a chance to, again, break the scoring record that it set a year ago, and also probably has a real shot at crowning 6 individual champions, which of course has never been done before, and possibly even more than that. Could send 7 into the finals. That obviously has never happened. So there's a chance for more historic greatness here from this Penn State program under this truly remarkable coaching staff. It'll all start November 16th with that NWCA All-Star Meet in Rec Hall, and then on that following day, Sunday the 17th, the dual season gets underway with Drexel visiting Rec Hall as well. And that is going to just about wrap things up here for us today. Again, this NFL weekend, we have the Eagles hosting the Browns. If coming off of a bye week, the Eagles can't take care of business against the Browns and Deshaun Watson, I don't know what to tell you. I know it's the NFL. I know anything can happen, but this is a game that the Eagles ought to be able to pencil in as a win. And it is a big weekend for the Pittsburgh Steelers in my mind. I think it sounds like they're going to go with Justin Fields. That, to me, is clearly the right thing to do right now. And I think this is just a critical 3-game stretch coming up for the Steelers. I think Pittsburgh has an excellent opportunity here to win these next 3 games and get to 6-2 on the season. But it starts with a matchup here with the Raiders team that is in a little disarray, still trying to figure things out with Devontae Adams. Mentioned on Tuesday the Steelers' need for a wide receiver. I don't know that you need a locker room with George Pickens and Devontae Adams, no matter how talented they may be. But Steelers they've got to get something figured out here at receiver, and somehow have to get this offensive line to improve. If nothing else, you've got to find a way to get the W here in Las Vegas in the late afternoon time slot on Sunday. And again, Penn State USC 3:30 kickoff on Saturday. Immediately after the game, listen for a special edition of Behind the Wall with Landon Tangwall. And we also remind you to stay tuned tomorrow. We will have our Center County Red Zone coverage of all of the Center County football teams from 7 to 10, and looking forward to bringing that to you as well. Folks, we hope you have a great weekend. We will be back on Tuesday with another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here from Quaker Steak and Lube. Until then, be good and be safe.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorrento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
Get our Best Wings USA, signature sauces, mouth-watering appetizers, or any of our delicious award-winning lube favorites.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak Lube.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
WFXS, once again.
Your sports radio.
Broadcasting live, loud and proud from Central PA's Sports Authority, WFXS America.
98.7 The Fox State College. The Goon and Ironhead.